The concrete walls of the shelter trembled again. Dust fell from the ceiling, sprinkling across the faces of the survivors as silence filled the air. The rumbling had stopped, but that silence was worse. It felt planned. I was standing near the metal door when I heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping. Not claws, not footsteps. Knocking. 3 slow taps, pause. Then 2 more. Everyone froze. One of the mothers whispered, "It's the soldiers. It has to be." But it wasn't. When the emergency system activated again, the lights flickered red. The old radio crackled back to life with a scrambled voice. "Do not open any doors. They are learning." The message repeated, distorted this time until it dissolved into static. I looked toward the door again. The knocks turned to scratching. Something dragged its nails along the metal, slow and deliberate, like it knew we were listening. Someone in the back of the shelter began crying quietly. Another survivor, a man with a bloody bandage on his arm, snapped, "They'll hear you." That's when the lights died. Total darkness. Someone whispered my name, but it didn't sound right, like they were forcing my voice out of their throat. When the emergency lights came back on, there were fewer of us. 5 missing. The door was still sealed, but bloody handprints now streaked the inside of the steel. No one heard it open. No one saw it happen. The radio buzzed again. But this time, a different voice. Calm. Almost too calm. "If you escaped the amusement park, they're following you. Don't trust the dark. Don't trust the mirrors. Don't." A deafening shriek drowned the message out. And from the far end of the shelter, behind the food crates, something moved, too tall, too wide, its outline bending unnaturally in the flickering light. I caught a glimpse of fur, soaked and dripping black fluid, and glowing red eyes staring through the shadows. We hadn't escaped the mascots. They'd followed us. And now, they were inside. The smell hit first, like burnt rubber and spoiled meat. The air in the shelter turned thick, almost oily. Someone gagged. The emergency lights flickered, painting everything in sick red flashes. Then the thing stepped forward. It was one of them, a mascot, or at least what was left of one. The fur hung in clumps, soaked black with blood. Its jaw was split down the middle, a mouth too wide, filled with teeth that didn't belong in anything human or costume. It stared at us with hollow eyes, blinking slowly, studying. A little boy whimpered, and that was all it took. The mascot moved. It didn't run, it snapped. 1 second it was across the room, the next it had crossed the entire shelter in a blur of motion. A man screamed as it tore through him like wet paper. Panic erupted. People tripped over crates, scrambled for weapons, anything. Someone swung a broken metal pipe, but the mascot didn't even flinch. Its head twisted all the way around to look at him before snapping back into place with a crunch that echoed through the bunker. I grabbed the boy and pulled him toward the back exit, the maintenance hatch. "Go!" I shouted, but my voice barely carried over the chaos. The emergency lights went out again, leaving only screams and the sound of tearing flesh. In the dark, something grabbed my shoulder. I turned fast, ready to fight, but it was the man with the bandaged arm. His voice shook. "They're not killing everyone," he whispered. "Some, they take alive." I stared at him. "Why?" He looked back at the blood-slicked shadows. "Because they remember us." Then the floor rumbled. A heavy, metallic thud from below the shelter. Dust fell from the ceiling. A second thud followed. Then another. The mascots weren't just in the shelter. They were underneath it. The hatch groaned as we forced it open, spilling a burst of cold night air into the tunnel. I shoved the boy up first, then the man with the bandaged arm. When I finally climbed through, the city hit me like a nightmare. Boston was gone. The skyline was jagged and half-dark, skyscrapers flickering with dying power. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, looping endlessly. A system still running without anyone left to shut it off. The streets were littered with crashed cars, smoke, and the faint orange glow of fires that hadn't gone out. We crept along the edge of the street, past a burning bus. The smell of melted plastic mixed with blood. Something shuffled in the distance. Not a mascot, but not human either. I motioned for the others to stay low. As we got closer, I saw one of them clearly for the first time. A man, or what used to be one, standing in the middle of the road, twitching like a puppet with cut strings. His face was stretched, his mouth fixed in a smile that didn't move. Around his neck hung a torn amusement park wristband. The bandaged man whispered, "He's infected." Before I could stop him, one of the survivors, a woman, called out to the figure, begging for help. The thing turned toward us. His head jerked violently left and right, bones cracking. Then it ran. I never knew something that broken could move that fast. It slammed into her, screaming with a sound that wasn't human. More like a recording of a scream played backward. The others panicked. I pulled the boy behind a car as the bandaged man swung his pipe, crushing the creature's skull. But it didn't die. It just kept laughing, even with its head caved in. Then we saw more of them coming. Silhouettes in the fog, limping, twitching, all wearing fragments of mascot suits. Heads, gloves, painted smiles. Dozens of them. The man with the bandaged arm looked at me, breathing hard. "They're turning people," he said. I shook my head. "Turning them into what?" He looked back at the street, eyes wide. "Into them." From behind the fog, a deep horn blared. Not a car horn, but something mechanical, resonant, like it came from the heart of the amusement park itself. Every infected head snapped toward the sound. And then, they started running. Not at us, past us, toward the city center. We stood there, frozen, watching hundreds of them surge through the streets like a wave of bodies. The boy tugged my sleeve and whispered, "They're going back home." I looked up at the distant skyline, where the Ferris wheel from the park still blinked faintly through the smoke, still turning. And in that moment, I realized something worse than survival. The mascots weren't hunting anymore. They were building something. We didn't follow them. Curiosity is death in a world like this. While the horde rushed deeper into the city, we ducked down an alley littered with debris and smoke. The bandaged man, whose name I finally learned was Owen, pointed toward a crumbling pawn shop across the street. "Gun stores 2 blocks east," he said, voice low. "If we move now, we might make it before they circle back." I nodded. The kid clung to my jacket, silent, eyes wide. He hadn't spoken since the shelter massacre. We moved through the ruins, every sound magnified. Broken glass crunching underfoot, distant screams, the occasional thud of something large moving above us. A mascot's howl echoed somewhere across the city, long and distorted, like a siren warping through metal. When we reached the gun shop, the door was already half open, glass shattered. Inside, the place was dark, but the air smelled clean. No blood, no decay. That meant it hadn't been hit yet. We slipped in. Owen pried open a display case while I checked the back. The kid found a flashlight on the counter and flicked it on. Bad move. The beam hit the far wall and something moved. A shadow peeled itself off the ceiling. I raised a bat I'd grabbed from the alley, my heart slamming in my chest. But it wasn't a mascot, not yet. It was a man, gaunt, eyes bloodshot, holding a shotgun like his life depended on it. "Turn that light off," he hissed. The boy froze. I pushed the flashlight down. The man's hands shook as he aimed the gun at me. "You from the shelters?" "Yeah," I said carefully. "We got out before it collapsed." He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "They're everywhere," he muttered. "Infected mascots. Doesn't matter what you call them. I've seen them tear through tanks. Only thing that slows them is fire." Owen grinned slightly. "Then we're in luck." He lifted 2 Molotovs from a backpack behind the counter. "Guess this place used to sell more than bullets." We armed up fast, shotguns, pistols, whatever we could carry. The kid found a flare gun and stuffed it into his coat. Before we left, the man behind the counter grabbed my arm. "If you're heading north," he said, "avoid Beacon Street. They're using it as a nest. The air smells sweet before they show up, like cotton candy. If you smell that, run." We stepped out into the night again, guns loaded, hearts pounding. The fires in the distance burned brighter now, red and orange bleeding into the fog. And for the first time since this all began, we weren't just running anymore. We were ready to fight back. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Because somewhere in that smoke, something was watching us. Something that knew we'd armed ourselves. We left the pawn shop in silence. Every gun we carried felt heavier than it should, not from weight, but from what it meant. No more running, no more hoping, just surviving. The street ahead was swallowed in fog and smoke. Fires burned through the shells of cars, throwing long, shifting shadows across the walls. Every sound was muffled. The air itself felt wrong, too thick, too still. Owen pointed toward a half-collapsed office building. We'll rest there. High ground. Good view. Maybe find food. We started moving. The kid clutched the flare gun, walking beside me. Every few seconds, he'd glance behind us. I didn't have to ask why. I felt it too. That crawling sense that something was right behind us. Halfway across the street, the wind shifted. And that's when I smelled it. Sweet, faint, like spun sugar. My blood ran cold. Move, I hissed. We sprinted toward the building, boots slamming against the pavement. Behind us, a low rumble echoed. Not footsteps, but the sound of something dragging across the asphalt. We dove through the lobby doors, slamming them shut just as a dark shape passed through the fog outside. I caught a glimpse through the cracked glass. Too tall, arms too long. The faint shimmer of fur under the firelight. It stopped, sniffed the air, and then turned its head directly toward us. The kid whimpered, covered his mouth. The creature just stood there, staring at the door. Then it smiled, not with lips, but with a split, vertical gash that opened across its mask. It dragged a claw across the glass, slow and deliberate, before walking off into the smoke. We didn't move for a long time. Only when the sound faded did Owen whisper, "It wasn't hunting." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He stared at the floor, his face pale. "It was marking us." Before I could reply, the kid pointed at the wall. My stomach dropped. On the concrete beside the door, written in thick, black, dripping streaks, were 3 words. "We see you." We didn't move for almost 5 minutes after reading those words. The silence was heavy. Not peaceful, but like the city itself was holding its breath. The kid clung to my arm. "Who wrote that?" he whispered. Owen swallowed hard. "Not the thing outside," he said quietly. "That paint, it's still wet. That meant someone or something else had been inside this building recently." We barricaded the doors with desks and broken furniture, then started up the stairwell. Each step echoed through the hollow building, our flashlights cutting thin beams through the dust and smoke. The deeper we went, the worse the smell got. Sweet, sickly, and chemical, like burnt sugar mixed with rot. On the 3rd floor, we found the first sign of life. A small camp, empty but recent. Food wrappers, burned-out flashlights. And on the wall behind a row of sleeping bags, more words scrawled in that same black ooze. "Don't trust the light." Owen frowned. "They don't like light. Everyone knows that." I shook my head. "Maybe it's not about them. Maybe it's about us." He gave me a look, confused, but before I could explain, the building groaned. A deep, metallic pop echoed above us, followed by a steady dripping sound. I aimed my light upward. A trail of black liquid ran down the ceiling tiles, spreading across the floor toward us. Then movement. Something was crawling inside the vents. Fast. We backed into a hallway, guns raised, but whatever it was moved like liquid, slithering from vent to vent. The metal creaked, then burst open as a mass of fur and metal wiring fell from above, writhing like it was trying to take shape. Owen fired first, shotgun blast echoing like thunder. The thing shrieked, half forming a face that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite mascot. Its mouth opened too wide, and from deep inside came a voice. "You shouldn't have left the park." We emptied half our ammo into it. The mass convulsed, melted, and slid back into the vents. The building went silent again. Owen stared at me, shaking. "They can speak now?" I looked down the hallway at the black trail seeping under every door. "No," I said quietly. That one wasn't learning. It was remembering. The kid tugged on my sleeve, pointing to the far end of the corridor. There was a door slightly open, a faint glow spilling out from inside. We crept toward it. Inside the room, the walls were covered in maps, streets, shelters, military zones, all marked with black circles and arrows. But one word was written over and over across the paper. Return. And just below it, in red, newer handwriting, they're calling US back. Owen stared at the wall of maps for a long time, breathing hard. Whoever was here before us, he said. They were tracking this. The attacks. They spread. The kid shined his flashlight across the room. Almost every street was circled, but one thick black line cut through the map, a path from the amusement park straight into the city's heart. The last circle was around City Hall. That's where it's going, I muttered. Not back to the park, forward. Owen nodded. Like it's expanding. We dug through the room for supplies, canned food, batteries, anything. I found an old police radio half buried under papers. When I turned it on, static hissed, then a faint voice bled through the noise. This is Delta Command. If anyone can hear this, stay away from the north sector, signal spreading. The message cut off, replaced by a low tone. Not static. A hum. It was faint, almost melodic, like a slow carnival tune playing from far away. The lights in the building dimmed slightly, then flickered back to life. Owen killed the radio instantly. You hear that? I nodded. It wasn't just sound. It felt like something pulling. The kid covered his ears, shaking his head. It's not music, he said. It's talking. In my head. I crouched down beside him. What's it saying? He looked up, pale and trembling. It wants us to come outside. The windows started to rattle, glass quivering against the frames. Somewhere below, in the street, that deep, distorted horn sounded again. The same one we heard when the infected were running. Only this time it wasn't distant. It was right outside. Owen peeked through the blinds. His face went white. They're not running anymore, he whispered. They're waiting. Hundreds of them filled the street, motionless, all facing the same direction. Their heads tilted toward the sky as the faint carnival tune hummed again through the static-filled air. I pulled the kid back from the window. We're not going anywhere near that park, I said. We stay quiet, stay smart, and wait it out. Owen shook his head. What if it's not a park anymore? What if it's something using the park? The kid pointed to the map, his finger trembling over the center of the city where the black line ended. They don't want to go home, he whispered. They want to bring it here. Outside, the sky flashed white, like lightning, but silent. And for the first time since this all began, the music stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong, like the world itself had taken a breath and was about to exhale. I don't remember falling asleep. None of us do. It was like the light knocked time out of us. 1 second the world was glowing white. The next, the room was gray and silent, morning creeping through the shattered windows. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Or rather, the lack of it. No sirens, no wind, no distant screams. Just an empty, heavy quiet that pressed on your skull. Owen stood near the window, shotgun in hand, staring at the streets below. The kid slept against the wall, clutching the flare gun like a stuffed toy. I joined Owen. Anything? He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. They're gone. I frowned. Gone. He nodded. All of them. Every one of those things from last night. Streets are empty. I looked for myself. The horde that had filled the city was nowhere to be seen. No movement, no sound, just burned cars and fog creeping through the ruins. It should have felt like hope, but it didn't. The smell hit next. Not death this time, something chemical, sharp, like ozone after lightning. The kid woke up coughing. Owen checked the stairwell. We need to move before that smell gets worse. Maybe they nuked the area. Without a sound? I asked. Without a blast? He didn't answer. None of us really believed that. We headed out through the stairwell, flashlights flickering against the peeling walls. The entire building felt different, heavier, warped, like the structure itself had shifted overnight. When we reached the ground floor, we saw the first sign something was wrong. The message on the wall, "We see you," was gone. Not painted over. Erased. Not a trace of it left. Just clean concrete like it had never been written. The kid whispered, "They took it back." We stepped outside. The air was gray and thick, but still. The fog didn't move naturally. It swirled against the wind, gathering toward the center of the city. That's when we saw them. People. Dozens of them, walking silently through the streets, eyes vacant. They weren't infected, at least not like before. No twitching, no violence. Just quiet movement, all heading in the same direction, toward City Hall. Owen raised his gun. "What the hell is happening?" I grabbed his arm. "Don't shoot. They're not attacking." The kid squinted at them. "They're following the music," he said softly. I listened, and faintly, from somewhere deep under the city, I heard it again. The same warped carnival tune. Slow, haunting, calling. Owen muttered, "If they're being pulled in, that means whatever's down there isn't done." I looked at the skyline, the fog rising higher now like a living thing. "Then we need to find out where it's spreading from, before it reaches us." He hesitated. "And if it already has?" I stared at him, then at the people marching through the mist. Their faces blank, their mouths barely moving as if whispering the same word. "Return." We followed the crowd from a distance, ducking between burned-out cars and shattered storefronts. Their pace never changed, slow, steady, synchronized, as if something deeper than instinct was guiding them. No one spoke. Even the kid, usually full of nervous questions, stayed quiet. The only sound was the faint echo of that music drifting through the fog. It grew clearer the closer we got to City Hall. The old amusement park jingle, stretched and broken, looping endlessly. Musical note, come one. Come all. Musical note. Except now it was slower. Wrong. Like something was imitating it through broken speakers. Owen muttered, "It's coming from underground." He was right. The music wasn't echoing off buildings. It was beneath them, somewhere deep under the streets. The crowd stopped at the city square. Hundreds of them now, standing in a perfect circle around the fountain. None of them blinked. None of them moved. Then the ground shook. At first, I thought it was an aftershock, but the movement was rhythmic, pulsing, like breathing. The fog began to rise from the cracks in the pavement, spreading across the square like a living thing. Owen backed up, shotgun raised. "We need weapons. Real ones." I nodded. "Gun store 2 blocks east. If it's not looted, we can stock up and..." The kid cut me off, pointing. "Look!" Something was crawling out of the fountain. Not climbing, crawling. Pale arms first, then a body, slick with black fluid that hissed as it touched the air. Its face was covered with what looked like fragments of mascot masks. One eye hole smiling, another cracked open wide, revealing nothing underneath. The people in the circle dropped to their knees as it rose, heads bowed. Owen whispered, "What the hell is that?" "I don't know," I said, "but we're not staying to find out." We turned and ran. The music followed us. Louder now, warping into a digital howl that made my ears ring. We sprinted through the fog, boots echoing down the street. The gun store was boarded up, but we smashed through the side entrance. Inside it was empty, mostly. Shelves overturned, glass shattered. But there were still a few rifles, a box of shells, and an old revolver locked in a case. Owen grabbed it all while I covered the door. The fog pressed against the glass outside, moving like a wave, searching. The kid whispered, "They're looking for us." "Yeah," I said, loading the revolver. "And they're getting smarter." Owen tossed me a backpack full of ammo. "Then we move fast. That thing out there, whatever crawled up, it's leading them." I looked back toward the square. Even from here, through the cracks in the door, I could see the faint glow of the fountain and shapes moving inside the fog. "Weapons first," I said. "Then we find out what's calling them. Because if it's spreading underground..." Owen finished my sentence. Then the whole city's already lost. The kid glanced toward the mist. No, he said quietly. It's not just the city. We stared at him. He pointed toward the television in the corner, still flickering with static. Then, for a split second, the static cleared, showing an image that froze us cold. An amusement park. Another one, hundreds of miles away, flooded with fog, and the same music playing through the speakers. Come one, come all. We moved fast. The streets were empty, but the air was heavy, thicker than before, every breath tasting like burnt metal. The fog had swallowed half the city, moving like a tide that couldn't be stopped. Owen led, shotgun tight against his chest. The kid trailed close behind, eyes darting at every flicker of movement in the gray. I stayed in the middle, backpack full of ammo thumping against my spine with every step. We passed a smashed police cruiser. The radio inside was still crackling with faint static, like someone trying to speak through it, but the voice was distant, almost muffled by the fog. Containment breach. No survivors. Repeat. The fog is. Then silence. Owen smashed the window, grabbed the cruiser's rifle, and tossed it to me. We're heading north. Highway might still be open. I nodded. If the bridges haven't collapsed. We turned down Fifth Avenue, where the city opened up toward the outskirts. It looked like a graveyard, buildings half gone, signs twisted, bodies still standing where they'd been caught mid-run, faces frozen in silent screams. But there was movement ahead. Something alive. At first, it looked like people, survivors maybe, but as we got closer, we saw the truth. Their faces were blurred, skin pale and stretched, like wax melting under heat. Their clothes were wet with that same black sludge we'd seen in the fountain. They weren't attacking. They were building something. Metal poles, wires, piles of rusted equipment. They were constructing a tower in the middle of the road, its base covered in mascot heads, all staring outward with hollow smiles. The kid whispered, "They're setting up antennas." Owen cursed, "They're spreading the signal." We turned back fast, but the fog behind us had shifted. It wasn't just creeping anymore, it was chasing. The street light flickered. The sound of footsteps echoed, too many to count. "Run!" Owen shouted. We bolted through an alley, climbed over a dumpster, and crashed through the back door of an old diner. Inside, everything was untouched, like time had stopped. Coffee still steaming, plates still warm, but there was no one there. The jukebox in the corner clicked on by itself, blaring that same song through broken speakers. Musical note, come one, come all. Musical note. The kid covered his ears. Make it stop. Owen smashed the jukebox with the butt of his gun. But the sound didn't stop. It echoed from everywhere, through the walls, through the floor. That's when we saw headlights outside. A military truck. Owen's eyes lit up. Rescue team. I shook my head. The soldiers stepping out weren't moving right. Their helmets were cracked, visors black with sludge. They lifted their rifles, but their arms were twitching, bending wrong. The fog curled around their legs like it owned them. Not rescue, I said. They're part of it. The kid pointed toward the back door. We can cut through the service tunnel. We ran again. The floor of the diner cracked as the soldiers opened fire. Bullets shredding glass, sparks flying. But they weren't aiming to kill. They were aiming to hurt us. Through the back hallway, down the stairs, into the dark. We burst into an old service tunnel, narrow, dripping with condensation, pipes groaning overhead. The air was colder down here, quieter. Owen slammed the door shut behind us and locked it. For a moment, all we could hear was the drip of water and our own breathing. Then the kid spoke softly. We're going underground again, aren't we? I didn't want to answer, because the music was getting louder. And this time it wasn't coming from above. It was below. The tunnel walls were slick with moisture, pipes rattling overhead like something was crawling through them. The only light came from Owen's flashlight, a thin, shaking beam that barely cut through the dark. The music still echoed from somewhere below, warped and distant, like it was traveling through the pipes themselves. Musical note, come one, come all. Musical note. Every step made the metal groan. Every sound felt alive. We followed the service line deeper, careful not to make noise. Above us, we could hear faint thuds. The infected, maybe the soldiers, maybe both. The kid whispered, "How far does this go?" Owen checked the faded map on the wall. "If I'm reading this right, this line connects to the old subway system. We keep heading east, we might reach an exit near the bridge." I didn't answer. My focus was on the humming under our feet, rhythmic, pulsing, almost breathing. Something big was down here. We passed old generator rooms, storage doors sealed with rusted chains. On one wall, there were words scratched into the metal in red. "Don't go below the 3rd level." The kid stopped. 3rd level. Owen sighed. Probably maintenance levels. Or labs. Either way, we're not going down there. We kept moving, but the deeper we went, the warmer the air got, like something was radiating heat from below. Then we reached a large steel door. It was half open, bent outward like something had forced its way through. The edges were scorched. Inside was a massive maintenance chamber wide enough to fit a bus. And it wasn't empty. Corpses hung from the ceiling, tangled in wires and cables, like the tunnel itself had grown veins. Their faces were pale, eyes open, skin melted into plastic and fabric. One still wore a mascot head, half fused to his skull. The kid gagged. "What did this?" Owen lowered his gun. "No, who did this?" We stepped closer and saw the wall behind them covered in documents, smeared with blood but still legible in places. Blueprints, reports, notes, each stamped with the same insignia: Department of Civil Morale, Project Laughing Cloud. But before we could read more, the ground shook. Something massive moved below us, the pipes rattling, concrete cracking. Owen pointed toward the far end. "There, another door. Go!" We ran as the ceiling started to crumble. Steam burst from the vents, and from the hole behind us came a sound that froze the blood in my veins. Laughter. Not human, not machine. Something in between. The kid tripped, and I grabbed him by the collar, pulling him through the next hallway just as the floor collapsed behind us. The roar of shifting metal echoed until it faded into a mechanical hum. We stopped to catch our breath. Owen looked back at the darkness we'd escaped. "That thing, it's not wandering. It's guarding something." I stared down the tunnel ahead, a faint green glow flickering in the distance. "Then whatever it's guarding, that's where we're headed." The tunnel narrowed, then widened into a massive chamber lit by a pale green glow. Generators hummed somewhere deep below, flickering like a dying heartbeat. The air was hot, thick with dust and the metallic tang of old blood. Owen raised his flashlight. "This place is still running." We stepped through a cracked doorway marked Restricted Access, Level 03, the same level the warning on the wall had told us not to go below. Asterisk. Inside, rows of glass pods lined the walls, each one fogged over from the inside. The lights above them flickered in sequence, as if something was still monitoring. The kid pressed his face to the glass of one pod. "There's something in there." He wiped away the condensation. A face stared back. Human, but not really. Its eyes were open, pupils dilated. The skin had fused with a plastic-like layer, a faint painted smile stretching unnaturally across its mouth. I stepped back. "They were growing them." Owen shook his head. "No, they were making them." The deeper we went, the more signs of chaos appeared. Blood smeared along the floors, claw marks gouged into metal. A console in the corner still glowed dimly, its monitor flickering with a half-broken interface. Owen started typing, fingers moving fast. "Let's see if it still has logs." Lines of corrupted text scrolled across the screen. Project log, August 17, 2048. Behavioral stability tests incomplete. Entities demonstrating emotional adaptation beyond control parameters. Phase 2 terminated. Containment breach in amusement sector confirmed. Evacuation recommended. The screen glitched and flashed one last line before powering down. "Do not attempt to communicate with them." The kid backed away from the console. Communicate? You mean, they can understand us? Owen didn't answer. The silence was his answer. We followed another corridor lined with broken mirrors and costume racks. Everything smelled faintly of burnt rubber and disinfectant. Then we found the door, a reinforced blast gate with a keypad next to it. Someone had carved into the metal beside it. The laughing cloud never dies. Owen tried the panel, and to our surprise, it still beeped. The gate slid open a few inches before grinding to a halt. A hiss of pressurized air escaped. Then a low, distant moan drifted through. Not mechanical, not human, somewhere between both. The kid's voice trembled. We shouldn't open that. But I already was. Because behind that door, I could see something glowing. A faint red light pulsing in the dark. Steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I turned to the others. If this place caused all of this, then the answer's in there. Owen raised his gun. Or the thing that caused it is. The blast door finally gave way, screeching as it opened. Inside was a massive underground chamber. Dozens of servers still running, red lights blinking across the walls. In the center stood a cylindrical tank filled with black fluid. Floating inside was something wearing a mascot head. Its chest rose and fell slowly, wires and tubes feeding into its body like veins. And above the tank, glowing faintly on the wall, was a single phrase in massive letters. Happiness is control. The music began again. Not through speakers, but vibrating through the metal itself. The sound alive. Come one, come all. The figure in the tank turned its head toward us. Owen whispered, "It's still conscious." I took a step closer, staring into the glass. Its hand twitched. Then its lips began to move, mouthing the same words we'd been hearing since the beginning. Come one, come all. The floor started to tremble. Alarms wailed. Owen shouted, "We need to go now." We ran as the glass cracked behind us, the sound of rushing liquid echoing through the chamber. The kid screamed, "It's waking up!" And in the distance, somewhere deep beneath the city, something laughed. The alarms howled through the tunnels. Red lights pulsed across the walls, flashing like arteries pumping blood through steel. We ran. The floor beneath us shook as the glass behind shattered, spraying black fluid in every direction. A wave of steam rolled down the corridor, thick and hot, and through it came a shape, tall, uneven, bending wrong at the joints. Owen turned to fire. "Move!" The blast from his shotgun lit up the darkness for half a second. The pellets hit, but the thing didn't stop, it only twitched as if remembering how to move in a human way. We kept running until the tunnel forked. I grabbed the kid's arm and pulled him left, down a maintenance stairwell. Owen followed, reloading as we went. The air down here was colder, almost freezing. Condensation dripped from the ceiling. And through the hum of dying generators, we could hear the thing's footsteps above us, slow and heavy. We burst into a control room filled with dead screens and broken panels. One monitor still glowed faintly, static flickering across it before words appeared. Project Laughing Cloud. Central core active. Remote override failed. Primary host, awake. Owen slammed his hand on the desk. What the hell did they build down here? I scanned the room, found a filing cabinet half buried under debris. Inside, the documents were brittle and stained, but still legible enough. Phase 1. Induced serenity tests. Goal: emotional regulation of civil populations via visual and auditory reinforcement stimuli. Fog compound LX3 used for passive inhalation control. Biological integration authorized. The next line stopped me cold. Host neural tissue, subject number 001, Omega, compatible. Owen read over my shoulder. They didn't just build it, he whispered. They grew it. The kid pointed at another page taped to the wall, a photo of the same tank we'd just seen except years earlier. Scientists standing proudly beside it, smiling. One note underneath read, Phase 3, emotional synchronization achieved. Signal ready for broadcast. The dots connected, slow and sickening. They weren't trying to create monsters. They were trying to create control. The mascots were never meant to entertain. They were built to pacify, to make people obedient. And when the fog started reacting to fear instead of calming it, when the music started listening back, everything turned. The kid whispered, "It's using their system. The fog, the signals. It's spreading the way they designed it to." The floor shook again. The thing was close now, scraping against the ceiling, the sound like metal tearing flesh. Owen cocked his shotgun. "Then we shut it down. However we can." I pointed at the main console. "If the core's active, there's a manual override in the main chamber." We moved. The hallway was alive now. Fog bleeding through vents, whispers humming through the pipes. The laughter followed us, echoing from every direction, fractured and overlapping like dozens of voices all laughing together. We reached the chamber again. The tank was broken, black liquid flooding the floor. In the center, the thing stood. Not a mascot anymore. Not human either. Its body was smooth, colorless, as if carved from wax. But the face, it kept changing, flickering between faces we'd seen. The clown, the bear, the smiling sun, all of them shifting in time with that tune. Musical note, come one, come all. Musical note. It tilted its head, studying us like we were insects. Then, in a dozen voices at once, it spoke. "We made them happy. They made us real." Owen fired again. The shot hit its chest, staggered but didn't fall. The kid screamed, "The override!" I ran for the console, slammed my hands on the controls. Sparks flew as I yanked the emergency lever. Warning lights blazed across the chamber. Manual override engaged. Core meltdown initiated. The thing shrieked. Its scream distorted through the speakers, shaking the entire tunnel network. It lunged toward us. Owen tackled it, firing point blank until the shotgun clicked empty. "Go!" The kid grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the exit. The ceiling cracked open, smoke and fog mixing into one choking cloud. I looked back. Owen was gone, swallowed by the light. The blast came seconds later. The shockwave tore through the tunnels, white light burning everything in its path. Then silence. When I woke, the city above was gone. Just fog and ash stretching to the horizon. The kid was beside me, coughing weakly. "Did we stop it?" I didn't answer, because in the distance, far beyond the ruins, a single speaker still played through the haze. "Come one, come all."